Hello, my name's Neil Todman. I'm one of the pastors at Headley Church, and this is my real life story about how cancer ripped through the heart of my family. Back in 2009, my brother's first wife, Sarah, died of cancer. She had two young children at the time named Jasmine and Amber, who were 3 and 5 when she died. And in a way that I can't really explain or understand, a few years later, in 2013, my first wife, Elaine, was diagnosed with cancer and died in 2015, leaving me with my two young children, aged 9 and 11. I learned a lot, really, from my brother's experience. I still remember where I was when he rang to say that Sarah had been diagnosed with breast cancer. I was sat in my garden in Montpellier, where I lived, just a month or two before moving to Headley Park. The boys were small and playing in the garden. And I remember picking up the phone, getting an unexpected phone call from my brother where he said Sarah has breast cancer and it's serious. It was a stage 3 cancer, and for 17 months they treated it and it seemed to be going so well. Then she went down with what they thought was a kind of stomach flu as a result of the chemotherapy, and she couldn't fight it off, so they took her into hospital. And I remember my brother ringing me off. She'd been in for a couple of days, just saying, "I'm dog tired, could you come and pick me up and drive me home?" So on the 26th of October, the day before my son's Isaac's 6th birthday, I was driving back to the RUH hospital where actually he was born, thinking I'd just give my brother a lift home. But when we got there, the doctor said we should stay, that actually her situation had got much worse. And I remember going and ringing Elaine, my first wife, and saying, "Don't worry, I'll be home tomorrow morning in time for Isaac to run through for his birthday presents. I'll be back no matter what." And in the time that it took me to make that call, her heart had stopped and the crash team arrived and they resuscitated her. But the following day, actually on Isaac's 6th birthday, my sister-in-law Sarah died. And there were 3 big things I learnt on that day. I remember as I ran back through and the crash team arrived, my brother and I just holding on to each other for dear life. And the heart monitor was stopped and they got the paddles out and they were restarting her heart. And I remember my brother with his beautiful wife, 35 years old, dying in front of him, just turning to me and saying, "She's going home, isn't she?" He knew even then that death is not the end for those who trust in Jesus. I remember as well that he spoke at his wife's funeral. The place was packed. There were probably more than 400 people came to her funeral in Bath. And I remember again my brother saying that the big question is, why didn't God save her? Why didn't he spare her life? And he said he couldn't really answer that question fully, but it wasn't that God had done nothing, because cancer was never Sarah's biggest problem. Sin was, and Jesus had dealt with that absolutely. And I remember sitting there in that church thinking about the weight of that statement, that he loved his wife with all his heart, but he could say that actually her biggest problem wasn't cancer. It was the sin, everything that separated her from God, and Jesus had dealt with that absolutely, so that he could know where she'd gone, not because she was a good person, not because she had died young, but because her faith and trust were in Jesus. I remember soon after my brother went through all of this, I said to him, "I can't imagine going through what you're going through. I can't imagine having the strength to respond in the way that you've responded." And my brother smiled at me and just said, "It's God who gives you the strength for each day." And actually, very sadly, that was proven to be true for me too. In December 2013, in the build-up to Christmas, which my first wife Elaine loved so much, she got abdominal pain and was rushed into the BRI. They then diagnosed her later that month with cancer, and following an unsuccessful operation at the RUH in Bath, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I had that horrible moment when I sat down with her consultant and said the words that no one ever wants to hear: "I'm very sorry." And I then watched Elaine go through 20 months of terminal illness, 22 rounds of chemotherapy, but let me tell you this, her faith in Jesus Christ never wavered. She always said to me and the boys, God is wise, God is good, God is in control. And right to the end, she held on to that faith. And then on August the 14th, 2015, Elaine died at home in our double bed, the one we'd always had since we were first married. just as she wanted. I remember shouting downstairs to the boys who were playing on their Xbox. It was early in the morning. They came running upstairs and they kissed their mum goodbye and told her they loved her. And then I kissed her goodbye and told her that I loved her. And then she took her final breath. And in that moment, I just thought, death, is that all you've got? Jesus died and he rose again. And I imagined Elaine on the other side of the grave. And I remembered a story about Jesus going to a family where a little girl had died at 12 years old, and he went into the room with the mum and the dad and his 3 closest friends, and the corpse was there in front of him, and he took the little girl by the hand and he said, "Little girl, I say to you, wake up." And she woke up from death. And as Elaine lay there, I imagined on the other side of the grave Jesus saying to her, "Little Elaine, I say to you, wake up," and her opening her eyes on the other side of death and seeing the face of Jesus, whom she loves so much. This is my real life story. It's the story that has given me hope in the darkest days of my life, and I hope it gives hope to you too.